So the first thing that I would say is really, as you're pitching into venture, the one thing that I think I made the mistake, and lots of people make the mistake of, is just wanting to get into the industry and not doing a little bit more homework with regard to fund size and where you want to be in the capital pipeline. So the thing to keep in mind is that there really is a capital pipeline. So if you're a startup, you're raising small amounts of money early on, and then as you scale through seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, you're really talking to different types of firms with different DNA, different backgrounds, different financial modeling, all that sort of stuff. And they're really looking for different things. So the one thing to first sort of ask yourself is, which part of that pipeline is really most interesting to you? I bucketed it into three groups, sort of seed capital, venture capital, and private equity. Private equity is really the overarching bucket of everything that's not public market. So really, all of this stuff is private equity in the sense that it's private capital put to work into private companies. But really, seed capital, I would say, is institutional in the sense that they take limited partner dollars, so there's university endowments and pension funds. They cobble it together into funds that are small, usually sort of south of $50 million in fund size, and then they're really writing the first institutional checks into startups. So they're seeing hundreds and hundreds of startups. They're writing small checks. They're doing pretty high deal frequency. So they're maybe doing an investment at least a couple a month, maybe one even a week. So it's very very high frequency. It takes really sort of extroversion and getting out there and just sort of figuring out where you think the technology is moving and making lots of small bets. Venture capital as a bucket, even though seed capital is certainly part of venture capital, it's the early part of that capital pipeline. Venture capital, I would say, is again institutional, so it's not private family office money. It's raising money from limited partners, usually cobbling it together into funds that are now maybe between 50 million and 500 million. Although we do see a few outliers like the Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoias and Coastal Ventures of the world that are pushing the $1 billion mark. Those guys really write checks that are sort of, they do some seeds, but they do sort of Series A, Series B. So Series A would be about 2 to 5 million, Series B might be 5 to 10, and then on up through growth equity. And venture capital, you're then looking at team, like real technology that's been built. You're looking at market size and how this scales into potentially being a $1 billion company. You're not really doing financial modeling at this point because it's still very early. It's still maybe pre-revenue, or if there is revenue, it's a couple $1 million a year sort of revenue run rate. And then you start scaling into growth equity and private equity. And I would say, for the purposes of this conversation, not going to talk much about private equity. This is where I think experience in banking, LBOs, M&A, that sort of plays more into if you want to get into deeper private equity, where there really is financial data coming in. You're really interpreting financial data. You're building models. You're trying to figure out sort of the nuts and bolts of the business at a greater granular level than you do in venture capital. So venture capital, seed capital are much more about trend spotting, team. It's a little more intuitive. It's a little more, there certainly are elements of doing finance per se, but you're not really doing discounted cash flows or regressions or things like that nearly as much as I think you are in private equity. So basically, all this is to reiterate, it's a capital pipeline. So you want to figure out where in that pipeline is most interesting to you. If you love analyzing the nuts and bolts of a business and your background is in banking and finance, maybe private equity is really exciting to you. I think if you're somebody that loves technology and loves tinkering with toys and talking to people, sort of getting a sense for where the market might be moving, then maybe seed is a good level for you. I think if you want to mix kind of a hybrid of those two, that's where venture capital really sits.